Good evening and welcome back to the Florida Weather Watch YouTube channel. My name is Daniel, the owner of the Florida Weather Watch YouTube channel, the owner of the Florida Weather Watch Facebook page, and Clear Sky Media Florida weather expert. Before I begin this video, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so that we can continue to grow this Florida Weather Watch community and I can reach out to more people with valuable weather knowledge. And also, please hit that like button down below. That'll tell me that you do like and appreciate the forecast updates I'm giving you, as well as please help me by sharing out this channel with as many people as possible because I really am focused on growing this channel. And today's video is not a weather forecast update. No, no, no. Today's weather video is going to be far different. And it's a video explaining why I'm becoming increasingly more concerned about the winter season and the spring season here in Florida. And it's due to the developments over the past several months with El Nino. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to explain what El Nino is in this video. This will definitely be an educational video where I'm going to walk you step by step through what I'm seeing with El Nino, what effects it does have on Florida's weather, and also comparing it to past historical events that have happened in the state of Florida, and why climatology and history support that this winter and this spring here in Florida, and I know I'm not usually the one that tries to raise the alarm well in advance, but why history and climatology are supporting that this winter in Florida could have severe weather outbreaks, could bring tornadoes that are not usual for the state of Florida. So I'm going to go ahead and let's get right into the nitty-gritty right here. Let me show you exactly what's happening currently. So even though this is not a forecast video, okay, this video, I'm going to model it very much like I do my weather updates. I'm going to show you what's currently happening right now with the situation with the climate. Then I'm going to go into specifics about what the computer forecast models are showing and why this is starting to become quite a concern for this upcoming winter season and spring season for the state of Florida. So first of all, what we're looking at, what you're seeing on your screen right now, is the sea surface temperature anomalies. And what these are is where the satellites above the Earth can read the sea surface temperatures. And also we have buoy systems all around the planet that do monitor sea surface temperatures and ocean temperatures. And what you're going to see is all these red colors here, all these red colors, these orange colors, these red colors here, tell us that the waters are warmer than average, warmer than history and climatology. Whenever you see these blue colorings down here, you are seeing that water temperatures are below average as far as history goes and climatology goes. And why exactly is this important? Because, believe it or not, the oceans control the world's weather. It's not anything over land. It's not man-made, as some people like to try to put it. But what it is that the ocean temperatures and the ocean currents control the moisture in the atmosphere. They control the heat energy in the atmosphere. And what we're looking at with an El Nino is where, I'm going to show you this real quick, is where waters in the center of the Pacific Ocean here, this what's called this Nino 3-4 index here. It's where waters that are in this region of the world, right here, I'm gonna box it up. My boxing tool always likes to do a little dance right there. But this center of the Pacific here is the most important place to look when you're going to be looking at worldwide weather patterns, especially in the northern hemisphere. And the reason being is because, for those of you that are not aware, ladies and gentlemen, weather around the northern hemisphere goes from the Western Pacific, so Japan, China, all these places. It comes across the Pacific in this region, in this direction, I should say. So all weather in the northern hemisphere goes in this direction, at least from 20 north and above. Now in the tropics, the weather will come generally from this direction here, okay, in these zones right here. And then down here, it's kind of similar where you're going to have the weather going in this direction as well around the southern hemisphere too. Okay. So the reason why is because the reason why this area is so important, ladies and gentlemen, is because whenever you get your storm systems that come across the Pacific here, let's say there's a storm system that is right here in the Eastern Pacific here. What those storm systems are going to do is that they are going to draw in energy and moisture from this region of the Pacific here. Okay, so a lot of the moisture, a lot of the heat energy comes from the center part of the Pacific Ocean. Okay, and as these storms, again, ladies and gentlemen, as these storm systems come across the northern hemisphere into the Atlantic, into the United States here, this area of the world will determine how severe the storms can get, how strong they can get, what energy is available. And the warmer these waters are, the more active these storm systems can be. So going back to the sea surface temperatures right here and looking at that region, ladies and gentlemen, looking at this region here, we are seeing that this entire center center Pacific, I'm so used to covering the Atlantic, but the entire central Pacific is above average waters temperature wise. So that is an indicator to us that we have what's called El Nino. When these waters are warmer than normal, higher than normal, that is an El Nino. If this was blue, we would be looking at La Nina. Okay, so that for those of you that are wondering, where do we get El Nino, La Nina from? We look at the Pacific Ocean, we look at the water temperatures there, and we see whether or not those water temperatures are below normal, they're cooler than normal, which would be a La Nina, whether or not they're neutral, or whether or not they are much warmer than normal, which is an El Nino. And that is what we currently have. And that's why I'm starting to get concerned about this winter and spring across Florida, because we have an unusual setup too. Because typically, if the waters are warmer here in a balancing act of nature, typically the waters around the Gulf of Mexico into the Caribbean would be cooler than normal. But look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Many of you that live around Florida very well know that the water temperatures around Florida are hot. They've been reaching into the 90s at some points this summer, including the Florida Keys, where the water is 6 feet or less, where there was one area in the Florida Keys that reached 101 degrees surface temperature waters. But all of the waters in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico are warmer than normal. So the problem that's going to end up happening, ladies and gentlemen, is when we do get these storms that will come over the Pacific here like this, and when they start riding into the United States here during the winter and everything, they will also have more energy to pick up because of the warmer waters in the Gulf of Mexico and the Northern Caribbean. So this is an unusual El Nino, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is not our typical El Nino, and it's going to be a very interesting winter and interesting spring for not just Florida, but for a lot of the northern hemisphere, especially around northern Europe, where they could be looking at some incredible winter storms this upcoming winter if these patterns do hold. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift gears. So I'm explaining what's happening currently. Now, when we look at the ENSO index, the 3-4 index, we're looking at how much above normal or below normal is the water in that center Pacific region. And what we look for here is we look for anything that is above, that is positive 0.5 degrees Celsius or higher. What that is, ladies and gentlemen, right here, is your El Nino region there, okay? So this is your El Nino right there, okay? Now, anything that's between negative 0.5 to 0.5, that is what we call a neutral phase of the ENSO cycle. Okay, let me go ahead and try to line these up here a little bit. And then anything below that, anything negative 0.5 or lower, what we are looking at is a La Nina here. Okay. So what we're looking at right here, though, ladies and gentlemen, is we are seeing that the water temperatures, the average water temperatures in the center of the Pacific are quite a bit above normal, and they continue to get warmer. Okay, this trend right here has been seeing us going in a steady trend in this direction towards what will likely, once it gets above 1.5 degrees Celsius above normal, what will likely become a super El Nino in the coming months ahead. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is now we're going to shift gears into the computer forecast models. And this is where I'm getting very concerned. These are all of the climate models, the dynamic models, the models that are used even for trying to track where hurricanes are going to go and storm systems are going to go. They do have the ability to go much farther beyond that. And what they're looking at only here is their forecast interpretation of how warm or below normal the waters could be in the Central Pacific, okay, in that ENSO 3-4 region. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, anything that's a positive 1.5 or above is a super El Nino. Look how many models we have right now that show a super El Nino. Okay, look at all these models right now going into the winter and spring right here that show that 1.5 degree or higher temperature anomalies in the Central Pacific. We are very likely going to see a super El Nino. And the reason why a super El Nino concerns me is because the last time we had a super El Nino to potentially this magnitude, and I don't like to be the alarmist, and I'm very much against scare tactics, fear mongering, but I look at climatology. I study climatology and history, and a lot of the signals we're getting right now, ladies and gentlemen, go back to this. Back in February of 1998, there was a super El Nino where the Gulf of Mexico waters were warmer than normal, and the worst ever tornado outbreak in Florida history occurred on February 22nd to February 23rd in 1998. And when you compare a lot of these sea surface temperatures, anomalies, and everything, you get to a point where it's a similar profile, similar atmospheric conditions to 1997, 1998, where on that fateful night, over 20 people would die in the state of Florida. Hundreds were injured because of this storm system that came across the southeast United States here. Um, that had a subtropical jet that was just screaming across the Gulf of Mexico, that picked up a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. And there was some turning with winds with height that really made this system tornadic. And we had seven different significant tornadoes of F1 or higher. Well, nowadays it would be called EF1 or higher. Um, that occurred, and the worst of which was the Kissimmee tornado. The Kissimmee tornado was an F3, ladies and gentlemen, that killed 25 people, 150 plus injured, and it occurred at 12:50 in the morning. This severe weather event happened in the same setup like what we have right now across the Gulf, across the Pacific with a super El Nino. And these are some of the images from that fateful night in 1998 where powerful tornadoes, F3 tornadoes, which is not usual for Florida, uh, strong tornadoes were able to develop and form because of a storm system that was just at the right angle, right ingredients that fed off that Pacific energy, then came across the United States. Actually, it should show it this way. And then picked up more energy from the Gulf of Mexico because it was warmer than normal. And there was a lot of damage, a lot of fatalities that did occur because of these tornadoes back in 1998. This was February 1998, ladies and gentlemen. And now, when we go ahead and you're wondering, okay, that was one isolated event. Yes, it was. But when I go ahead and I take a look, I want you to keep this image in mind right here. Let me go back to that forecast map right here. Okay. I want you to keep in mind the angles of these two winds here. Okay. I want you to keep in mind that the winds were coming across the Gulf of Mexico this way, at above, and then below, the winds were coming up like this. Because when I show you the climate models, there's a lot of indications that that setup is going to be similar this winter and this spring across Florida. Remember that flow right there, because when I show you the models here, what I'm going to be switching this to is called the upper dynamics and the upper level winds, upper level wind shear. So what this is showing us is in reds, it's showing us higher than normal upper level winds, which you need high wind shear to get turning with storms, which causes tornadoes. But you also need to look at the arrows and the directions as well. So this is for October. So these are the climate models. So this is the CFSV2, the Climate Forecasting System version 2, that was upgraded a few years ago. And this is an average of its last 12 forecast runs. So this is not just one run. This is the average of 12 computer forecast model runs on this. And what it specializes in is looking at the environmental conditions for the long term, for months in advance. And actually, these models do have some decent skill at doing this. So what I want you to notice is take a look over Florida. And I want you to notice how when I go ahead and step this into December and now January and February here, look at January and February. We have some very, very fast upper level winds going on here across the Gulf of Mexico. I'm going to put it in white here so you can actually see it better. Okay. So you have these winds screaming across the Gulf of Mexico in this direction here. Actually, let me go ahead and get the correct angle here. So you have winds that are screaming across the Gulf of Mexico in this direction here, across the state of Florida, right? Okay. And then when I go ahead and show you in February as well, then you see a shift in the pattern where you're going to see the winds coming from the southwest and everything. Okay. So now when I go ahead, I'm going to leave that on there because I'm going to leave that as the upper level winds. Okay. Then when I go ahead to the surface, sea surface pressure anomalies here. Okay. And we look at what is going on here. I want you to look at the barbs here. Okay. So what this is showing us is at the surface here, you can kind of see how with high pressure, remember high pressure spins clockwise here. Okay. You are going to get, at times, you're going to get winds that are going to be, hey, come here. Okay. So with these systems and with these areas of low pressure here, that's what this is showing you is in blue areas of lower pressure. Okay. Let's say that this is an area of low pressure right over here. Okay. And remember that in the north, actually, let me go ahead and get that larger here. Let's say there's a low that comes across here uh, into the state of Florida, right? Okay. So this is showing that there's areas of low pressure that could come across, come across the state of Florida here. And let's say there's one that comes over Florida here. What this is showing us, ladies and gentlemen, is then you're going to get those winds on the backside of these storms like this. So when you combine the upper level winds in the climate forecasting system model with the lower level pressures as well at the surface, and noting that if there's a storm that comes across the Gulf of Mexico, the winds are going to come from the southwest and northeast at times, against upper level winds that are going from west east. That is where you get turning in the atmosphere. So if a storm system comes through, that's going to create the potential for severe weather and tornadoes. And these type of setups are typical of things you find across the southeast United States, like Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, not typical of Florida. So that's the point I'm driving home, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it's many months ahead. It's currently mid-September. But I want to make sure you're understanding, ladies and gentlemen, that the atmosphere is primed and getting ready for us to have a very active winter and spring season. And when I show you this too, this is the precipitation anomalies, ladies and gentlemen. And the precipitation anomalies are also showing above average rainfall. So when you add above average rainfall in January, and especially February here, where there's a big bullseye right here of above average rainfall right here. When you add that in February, along with very fast upper level winds screaming across the Gulf and turning of winds with direction with height, you know that this winter and spring, if this holds and these trends continue, which they don't look to be changing anytime soon, this winter season going into spring will be a very active and stormy winter, a very active and stormy spring, with the rare potential for tornado outbreaks to occur. Am I saying that's going to happen 100%? No. Am I saying there's a likelihood that we could possibly see a repeat of the fateful night of 1998 here? Yes. Okay. So the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, when we go ahead, we look at these sea surface temperatures here, much above normal in the Central Pacific, which means we're in an El Nino and we're trending closer to a super El Nino, with these very warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean adding even more energy into storm systems that come across the Pacific into the United States this winter. When we see all of these computer forecast models right here in agreement that this El Nino will continue and get stronger, And then when we look at all these computer forecast models here for climate, showing the El Nino strengthening and upper level winds increasing in the winter and the spring and change the direction with height, we're looking at a very concerning setup for winter and for spring across Florida. Now, where across Florida? All depends on time and location, much like with hurricanes or any other storm systems, ladies and gentlemen. It all depends on where that storm system sets up and the angles involved at that point. So, as far as specifics, we can't get into that. Okay. But the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, with everything going on with El Nino, with the climate patterns across the world and everything, we are looking at the potential for a very active and stormy winter and spring season that could bring severe weather events and even the potential for a tornado outbreak or two. So hopefully this was an educational video for you that really helped you understand El Nino better, what to look for El Nino, and why I am getting increasingly concerned for what could what could come this winter and spring. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions about El Nino, any further questions about anything I explained in this video, please put that in the comments section down below. I will respond to all comments as well. Please make sure you subscribe, you share this out with as many people as possible. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And as I close out with all my videos with a quote from my late great cross country coach Jim Richardson, there'll be weather, but whether or not, but whatever the weather will be this winter, I'll be here to keep you ahead of the storm. Have a wonderful weekend. May God bless you all. Thank you very much for watching.